The position of Jupiter is very important to determine when the Mahabharata War took place. There are three verses, each of which give us a possible position. The three verses state that Jupiter either causes Peeda to Rohini, or is stationary at Vishakha with Saturn, or is retrograde at Shravana at the same time as Mars is retrograde at Magha. Let's analyze these verses. The first verse is from Karna Parva 68:49, which says that Jupiter causes Peeda or affliction to Rohini. Peeda is a Jyotisha term. It needs an explanation as per the principles of Jyotisha, as that's what Vyasa meant. The verse in addition demands a Nakshatra Peeda explanation and not a Rashi Peeda explanation, as that's what the verse states explicitly. The next verse is Bhishma Parva, chapter 3, 25, which states that Samvatsarasthayano cha graho prajulta vubhau Vishakhayo samipasthau Brishaspati Rohinim. One translation of the verse could be that two ignited grahas are near Vishakha Nakshatra and are named as Saturn and Jupiter. But there is a problem. The verse preceding it shows the path. Jupiter never stays at a nakshatra for a full year, but only a few months at a time. Those two grahas have shikhas, and so they must be comets, and they must obscure or penetrate the Saptarishis, which are very far away from Vishakha. Jupiter and Saturn, howsoever bright, cannot do this. Verse 3 is from Bhishma Parva, chapter 3, verse 13, and says that Jupiter is retrograde at Shravana at the same time as Mars is retrograde at Magha. Maghasvangarako vakraha Shravane-cha Brishaspati, which is impossible from the astronomy point of view. The problem in verse 3 is that Mars cannot be retrograde at Magha at the same time that Jupiter is retrograde at Shravana, as the Sun is then required to be in two separate positions 150 degrees apart in the same verse at the same time. Hence, an alternative explanation must be found. These verses therefore can only pertain to two comets retrogressing near Magha and Shravana. I have explained these in my book. After this rigorous cross-checking, let us check our inferences now. Verse 2 is resolved as two comets, as Jupiter and Saturn don't have shikhas and cannot obscure or penetrate the Saptarishis, which is Ursa Major. Next, verse 3 is resolved as Mars and Jupiter cannot be retrograde at the same time in the same verse at Magha and Shravana nakshatras, as the Sun is now in two opposing positions 150 degrees apart simultaneously. The only verse, therefore, which survives our rigorous cross-examination is verse 1 from Karna Parva, chapter 68:49, which talks about Jupiter causing Peeda to Rohini Nakshatra at War Day 17 at the time of Karna's death. Has anybody been able to prove this surviving single verse of Jupiter using Nakshatra Peeda principles? Here, I show you the Sarvatobhadra Chakra, which is used for determination of Nakshatra Peeda and was used at the time of the Mahabharata. You can see that Jupiter is clearly causing Peeda to Rohini from Ashwini Nakshatra on the 17th day of the war in 3067 BCE. You can see that Jupiter is clearly causing Peeda to Rohini from Ashwini Nakshatra on the 17th day of the war in 3067 BCE. Can Jupiter cause Peeda to Rohini in any other war proposal using the stringent principles of Nakshatra Peeda as envisaged by Vyasa? Let's check the proposal of 5561 BCE using the same Sarvatobhadra Chakra. You can clearly see that Jupiter cannot cause Peeda to Rohini on the 17th day of the war in this war proposal. Thus, the most credible, consistent, and logical position of Jupiter, as shown on the 17th day of the war, is at Ashwini Nakshatra and afflicting Rohini Nakshatra, as shown. In summary, all three verses pertaining to Jupiter must be resolved accurately. In 3067 BCE, we have resolved all three verses, whereas in 5561 BCE, three verses are not resolved, and the wrong position of Jupiter is taken, thus invalidating the war proposal of this year. Hence, 3067 BCE is the year of the war.